The kind of satisfaction you get from doing work that you really feel strongly about and knowing you're having a real impact is a pretty exciting thing, and it's a very energizing thing.
I like meeting people and seeing how who they are impacts their environment, and I like when somebody has a story to tell but can't figure out how to tell it.
There's so much bad news in this world, and I get to talk about some really positive, inspiring things and get to share stories of people that are doing things that are making a positive impact on the world.
When I was little, I imagined someday I was going to go to Hollywood and I was going to be in movies. So I took acting classes. And this one little kid he and I did a lot of acting together, well, he got picked to be Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. So of course I thought, well, I'm next.
I originally, when I was very young, I wanted to be a singer, believe it or not.
I kind of wanted to be in business. That was always my dream. I always imagined I would be sitting at the top of some corporate ladder.
To an extent, I always knew that I would end up in a communications-related field. I love to write, I love to tell stories, and I loved being able to take something that was pretty complicated and be able to simplify it so that anyone could understand and be interested.
I clearly followed my interest. I worked in the music business in Washington for 18 years. I loved music. My first job when I was in high school was at a Sam Goody's record store. So becoming the head of the Recording Industry Association was just a huge personal accomplishment.
And started doing freelance writing for a public affairs firm. And this was something I'd never heard of before. And the kind of work we were doing was creative and exciting. And I thought, who knew this existed? This is amazing.
My coolest moment at work was being in the Rose Garden when President Obama signed the Jobs Act into law. To know that I had somewhat of a role in telling the story of why entrepreneurs needed this legislation to better access capital to help grow their companies was really inspiring.
One of the proudest moments of my professional career actually just happened this year when I saw that marvelous Edie Windsor walk down the steps of the Supreme Court and greet her audience outside, which were clamoring and cheering for this wonderful 82-year-old lesbian who had lived more than half of her life in the closet. What our aim was to inform the court and the country that the country was ready for the Supreme Court to come to the right decision here. And so we culminated in what even the Pew interest group said in their polling was really an overwhelming amount of positive publicity in this campaign.
One of the campaigns that I will always remember is working on the Heart Truth campaign with National Heart Lung Blood Institute. And I led the team. We started from scratch. I sat down with a senior person at NIH who said, well, we have a big problem. We have 500,000 people dying of heart disease every year. And I thought, wow, we have so many people affected by this, and we have to do something big. And that led to the development of a red dress as an icon. And I think over the course of 10 plus years, that campaign has really shown to make a big difference in how women behave and how they act and what they know about heart disease. And my brother, who's a cardiologist, said all his nurses wear red dress pins. He said, Pam, I finally get what you do.
Mentoring played a really important part in my life. I worked early on very closely with Dianne Feinstein when I was her essentially Washington lobbyist, and then my boss at the Recording Industry Association, a great guy who really just let me run with things.
I was really fortunate when I came to Washington to find Patricia Barrio. Pat Barrio was the first female deputy press secretary in the White House. She was just one of the greats in the field. She stood for what she believed in. She would walk into a room and say the unpopular thing and do it with incredible confidence. And boy, when you're 20-something and you're watching this happen, it really has a profound effect on you.
It's really important to me to pay it forward. I think, when people approach me and ask me for advice, guidance, I try to find as much time as I can to mentor people who, might be struggling to find the right path, who might be struggling to make the right connections, and try to pass on the words of wisdom that have been passed on to me, but also try to pass on things that I've learned in my own career.
The best advice I ever got from one of my mentors was from Pat Barrio, my first boss, who said to me, "Go home." As a woman who had raised 2 sons and had balanced family and work life, she knew that people who, like me, who had a strong work ethic and passion, that sometimes you just need somebody to push you and say, "Go home and do something else," because you can't do this 100% of the time.
I think I've learned that it takes a lot less energy to be nice than it does to be, angry or tough. When I was starting my career, there were even fewer women doing what I was doing. And so, the tendency, I think, was to try and just push your way to the front of the table, make sure everybody in the room heard your voice. And now I think I'm more confident sitting back a little and taking it in and offering it up in a gentler way.
One of the biggest pieces of advice that I've gotten that I would pass along to other women as they're thinking about growing their careers is, don't be afraid to seize an opportunity. Don't be afraid to go for something that seems like a stretch. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there with a new idea.
If you don't try, you're not going to succeed. If you don't try, nothing's going to happen. And sometimes you need to do it even if it's wrong.
It's a mantra we have at the Case Foundation: fail fast, fail forward. We actually do a mid-year and a yearly review of all of our projects. We scale it on a red to green scale. If we don't have enough red dots, which means things that aren't working, we're not trying hard enough.
There may not always be a way to reach your ultimate goal, but there's always a way to reach a similar goal and to find a win there.